And welcome, everyone. Yes, we're doing another interview already this year, and I am very excited to bring to you a young filmmaker whose film I recently reviewed, How to Start a Cult in Five Easy Steps. We have with us today Mr. Wes Clark is with us. How you doing, Wes?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Glad we could get together and chat about it.
Yeah, I am too because you had sent me your film and we got a chance to look at it, and I was very interested in it because there were a number of things that came up with it that I thought you did that were a bit different. So I guess first off, for my listeners, in case they may not be familiar, I love getting in your own words. What is How to Start a Cult in Five Easy Steps about?
Yeah, so the title is pretty informative. It's, a young college graduate. He has debt. He's a bit of a loser, and he sets out to start his own cult. At first, it's kind of a get rich quick kind of scheme, but quickly develops into kind of a nightmare for him. He kind of starts losing himself in the process and some of his friends, up until the point that the cult gets out of hand and things turn awry and go horribly wrong, as you can imagine. It's a dark comedy. I think the trailer comes off a little bit more like a thriller, but it is funny. It has, funny moments, odd moments. And I'm only 24. I wrote the thing when I was 22, filmed it at 23. So it definitely speaks to a younger audience, younger generation of movie watchers.
Well, but you still cover topics in there that are related to a lot of folks today. But it definitely watching it, I'm like, okay, I can tell who wrote this, and didn't mean that in a bad way. Just that I knew that there were subjects that were coming up that are still hot topics right now, unfortunately. Uh, but so where did the idea for this come from?
Yeah, so the title came first. I wrote the title months before I ever wrote the script.
Hmm.
I I'm someone who believes very heavily in marketing and making sure that you have a catchy name, a good poster, having a good trailer, things like that. But I really wanted to set out and do something that had meaning, that had purpose. I write and I direct, and I kind of do everything. I edit, I produce, etc. But I really wanted to make sure that if it was going to be a movie that I could stand behind and be really proud of at the end of the day, that it spoke to something that either, affected me somehow or affected people around me. And so, doing that again at 22, just getting out of college, I thought to myself more about the character and who this character would be, trying to represent people who are just coming out of school. Maybe they have some debt. Maybe they feel like they don't necessarily have a place in the world yet. They don't know quite what they want to do with themselves. And, maybe are really harsh on themselves and feel as though they can get further ahead, but they haven't been able to yet. They haven't been able to express themselves or do the big things that they've always known that they wanted to do. And so that's kind of Thomas Varley, right? So he comes out of school, he has no real aim in life, but he knows that that aim is going to be high. And he, after rejection, he comes up with, well, I'm not that big of a loser. There's definitely people who are even more losers than I am, and I can probably help them somehow. Obviously, the only problem with that being that he is a loser, and so losers leading losers are it's a slippery slope. It's a very bad idea. And it's funny too, and I think it's the right comparison. But a lot of people go to like Andrew Tate characters, people like that,
Mm.
these kind of macho guys who are on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, and they put these videos out about, hey, like, you're a loser, but it's your fault. You need to be better. You should, eat more protein. You should work out. You should whatever,
Mm.
et cetera, et cetera. And so I just went down that kind of rabbit hole of, okay, what if we were in the shoes of the person doing it? What if we were that person trying to collect these people, find those losers online and kind of assemble them? And that took the script away and came out pretty quickly. I wrote the script in about like 10 days,
Oh,
so
wow,
did not
nice.
take very long. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and Thomas Varley, your main character, played by Halston Mann, who did a fantastic job, by the way. Very,
Yeah.
very charismatic gentleman. But his dialogue and such, um, you mentioned the folks that inspired you. It reminded me a lot of self-motivation speakers along those lines, those ones that, they're getting thousands upon thousands of dollars to talk to companies and that. And some of his dialogue reminded me of that. And some people have even compared those types of programs in that to a cult. Did you kind of draw on that as well? Like, some of those other motivational finance speakers and such out there that do a lot of corporate events and such?
Absolutely. I went to an all boys school from the age of 1 until 18. And so
Mm,
I was always around, young men,
sure.
pretty much my entire childhood. And so we would have speakers come in and gear their conversations towards boys and young men. And so the conversations were always kind of in that realm of, no one is coming to help you. No one's going to hold your hand. If you're going to
Hmm.
do something, you have to do it, go out, achieve it, and make the world your oyster, right? And that kind of mentality seeped into my education, and it seeped into my my upbringing.
Sure.
So coming out and writing a script, again, it was a lot of inspiration to draw from just my life and being around people who either would essentially completely reject it or completely fall into it. Kids who would go out and lift every single morning before class, or be taking creatine during class, or having protein shakes or
Sure.
whatever. And that's not a knock on that. I mean, listen, I go to the gym too, but there's kind of a difference there between okay, I'm doing this for genuine reasons because I want to be healthy or I want to be fit, or maybe I play a sport. And then the group that's a little bit more culty, right? Those
Right.
corporate speakers who get you to start clapping, and suddenly the entire auditorium's clapping with them, and suddenly we're all saying the same things. And it gets kind of out of hand really quickly. And if you're not paying attention, you slip into it without really ever realizing it.
Yeah, you do actually. I've heard some stories for sure. And so, for your Thomas Varley, where did you find Man from? Did you go through a large process to find your main character? Because I thought he very much fit the part, but I was wondering, how long of a process was it to find your main guy?
All of the roles, with the exception of Holston and Lew,
Mhm.
were these larger endeavors of putting out a post for talent, having, in the case of some of the roles, like 10,000 people submit for it, going through them all, whatever.
Mhm.
For Holston's role, I knew it really was going to take a special talent, someone who we didn't have the budget for someone who was established or had that
Right.
name yet, but someone who was maybe on the cusp of that, someone who
Mhm.
might be able to get there in the next 5 years. So I actually reached out to a bunch of casting directors that I knew, and luckily one of them had some names for me, and he was actually at the very top of that list. Reached out, had him audition, and I mean, as you can see, worked out really well. And the thing I love about Holston is that he was really willing to sit down with me in pre-production, go through the character,
Mhm.
talk through the internal struggles that a character like this might have, why he might be, such a fast talker, what is motivating him to do that, what's really driving it, not just on the surface, but underneath. And so
Mhm.
Holston, you know, credit to him, and it comes through in the performance, but he really, really wanted to understand Thomas and the motivation, and he came to set just ready to roll. And I think in a lot of ways too, he was able to make the character a lot more funny than maybe even it was on the page. It was always meant to
Sure.
be dark comedy. It was always supposed to have humor, but he really did have a way with developing it, having it be his own creation to a certain extent.
Yeah, his character, it was interesting watching the transformation of Thomas and where he goes from where you start. But even when you start, you kind of see a little bit of darkness underneath him. But, seeing how that develops, I thought he plays that very well and very convincingly to where you're like, yeah, I could see how this guy would end up where he does from where he started.
Yeah, I think it's, there's definitely a class of people who I think are just in the real world who've always have felt like they were meant to do something bigger, bolder,
Right.
what have you. And so someone like that is perfect for Thomas, for and trying to get ahead but not necessarily take the 10, 15, 20-year route to get there.
Right.
The person who takes the time, develops, does all the schooling they're supposed to do, does the corporate ladder, that person's great, but there isn't necessarily drive underneath that will say, essentially, I'm willing to do anything to get there,
Hmm.
right? So you really need that person who, fuck the 10 years, fuck the 15 years. I'm not doing that. We're going to do it in 2 years. This
Right.
is how we're going to do it. I don't care how many bridges we burn. It's going to happen. And that's kind of it. And as a filmmaker in an industry that has no corporate ladder, there is no structure to it. I personally relate to it, and a lot of filmmakers relate to it because you ultimately kind of set your own path for it, and
Hmm.
there is really no way to get quote unquote ahead without just doing it and fighting your way through it. So I think he really understood that, Holston. I think he grabbed it, bull by the horns, and he just ran with it.
And run with it he does. And we'll get into a few other your cast members here, but so how'd you get Lew Temple? I recently saw him because I've seen him in a number of films over the years, watching indie films. I saw him most recently in Chad Farron's Ed Kemper. So how'd you land Lew?
Yeah, Lou, great actor. Had such a pleasure meeting him and working with him on set. He was a friend actually of our producer, and was just a reach
Hmm.
out there. We messaged a couple other fairly larger names, people who have had larger careers for the part. But at the end of the day, Lou really took the show. He just has a level of delivery and timing and kind of rhythm to the way that he interacts on set with other actors as well, where it flows so much more naturally. And it
Hmm.
really came down to also not having to necessarily coach him into it. I didn't necessarily have that same kind of development path and time with him like I had with Holston.
Sure.
And so having him show up to set, we only had him for 2 days, and being able to just run through it was great. And a lot of those scenes, quite frankly, because we're low budget and so we can't pay for everyone to be on set every single day.
Right.
He's acting across from no one. He's acting completely alone. We have the old tennis ball on a stick, and he has some eye line, but he really
Right.
is just there doing it himself. And he, again, I mean, what a professional. He just came in, did it, got out, and that was kind of it.
Oh, that's great. You got him though. Yeah, he's a great talent. He's always fun to watch on screen as well. And where'd you get your rest of your cast of characters from? Because some of these folks, these all felt like real people. But did you draw on people you've met before, or because some of them they
No.
really felt like that?
No, no one I knew before.
Mm,
For the most part, it was just audition process, and again, we had thousands of people submit.
sure.
I think the two who are most interesting here is Del Murphy, who plays Anton. He is best friends, former roommates with Holston. So we actually kept struggling to find someone who could really play Anton
Sure.
because Anton's character is incredibly complex, being
Hmm.
that super best friend who always has Thomas's back, but at the same time having individuality and having an arc for himself as a character was really tough, and we couldn't really find someone. So I reached out to Holston. I said, "Hey, we don't really have anyone for this. Do you have anyone that you just love, you've worked with, whatever?" And he immediately knew exactly who he wanted to go to. I met with Dell, I think, a couple hours later in the same day that I shot that text over to Holston, and pretty much signed him right there on the spot. I thought the audition was great. And then the second is American Beef, which is Nathan Wright. He's the opera singer. He submitted. There was maybe 2,000 people who submitted for that role. I sent back zero casting calls or callbacks for those people. The only person who I wanted was Nathan. Immediately, I looked at his tape. I knew I wanted him to work on the project with us, and he didn't respond. And then I sent another one, didn't respond. And then I hunted down his agent, and I was like, "Hey, like, get him
Yeah.
to respond to me. Like, we need to do this. Like, we're gonna go into production." And thankfully, the agent picked up the phone and got me back a little tape from him. So those are probably the two most interesting, but really it just comes down to time. Therese was one of 8,000 submissions. We went through every single one to find the right person. And that was technically open to SAG as well. We made the minimum dues for that role. So, we had some really good talent, and she wasn't SAG, but in my mind, she deserves it. I think she's a great actress. So really just putting in the time and the effort. Most of these people, other than Holston and Lew, are not professionals. A lot
Sure.
of them,
Hmm.
pretty much all of them, I think Ginger works at CVS. Uh, Someone worked at Taco Bell. Like these are people who have normal everyday jobs, but they love to act on the side. And fortunately, the time paid off because
Sure.
we got a really great group of people.
Yeah, that's true indie fashion. What you're saying is a true story of many indie productions, and the characters that you wrote as well, Stutters in that. Did those come as well from people that you've met in the past, or like because Stutters is? I'm gonna admit right now, the minute we meet Stutters, played by Colin Hendley, uh, I'm like, no, not this guy. Don't bring this guy into the group because he just got definitely a bit of that dark side where, how'd you come up with Stutters?
So I have a running list of things I find interesting, ideas I have in the middle of the night, and I wake up and I write them down. And that document at this point is 400 pages long, with
Sure.
a bunch of random things and
Mhm.
objects and words and whatever. And I go through it every couple months just to see, okay, what did I write? And I found something along that line of someone who had a stutter, clearly had kind of a weakness to them, kind of fragile, but had kind of an internal struggle with either himself or some kind of external force. And I think that that feeds into a lot of people these days, where there's
Mhm.
people who feel a bit like a victim. They feel a little bit like the world has really just pushed them down, and they don't know that they want to get out of it, but it's
Sure.
there. It's always kind of lurking in the background. And so when they get that opportunity finally, they just go, pretty much there's no stopping them. And that kind of person I have met multiple times. I don't
Mhm.
exactly know what time it was that I wrote it
Sure.
down in
Sure.
my little journal, but I have met those people before,
Mhm.
who at first glance everyone kind of,
Right.
whatever, that guy's like an NPC, he's not real, who cares? I'll never see him again. But a couple years later, magically, they're, starring in some movie, or they
Mhm.
wrote something that's pretty impressive, or they do something that just shocks you completely. So, yeah, I think that character in particular relates to a lot of people out there.
Yeah, and he definitely, I like where you went with him because it was fitting. In fact, your whole solution, even though it gets dark, it does go dark near the end there. I think that it's the direction you have to go because you're dealing with the subject of a cult. I mean, there's, as much as Thomas tries to play it off as just this motivational group, it does become a cult. And, how fine of a line is that to where it's a comedy of a cult. It's funny cult, but then you're like, cult's not really a funny subject when you start to think about pretty much any cult. So, how do you approach that material to try to find that balance?
It's a great question. For me, it's really just ingrained in who I am. I have a real sense of appreciation for dark comedies, and kind of dragging out humor from dark moments.
Sure.
So my father's passed away, my grandparents have all, passed away.
Sure.
I have a very small family. It's really just my brother and my mother at this point. And so, through all those moments in my personal life, it's always been kind of comedy coming through and kind of helping me along the way. So it's just very natural for me. That's also a genre that, quite honestly, I feel the most in line with, and I kind of feel the most connected with, is having people say kind of outlandish things at kind of the right moment, where instead of coming off super dark, it comes off kind of comical. Right? It's kind of the dark kid in the classroom who has kind of suicide jokes all the time, but is never actually going to do it. And whatever.
Right.
It's almost their version of getting off steam, letting off steam, and kind of expressing themselves in a way that, to someone who doesn't know them would think, oh my God, that kid's troubled. But maybe to his friends, they think, that's just Jimmy. Jimmy's, doing what he does. And, he's kind of funny, kind of endearing in a weird way. So it comes kind of natural to me. I think it also goes back to that all boys school
Sure.
upbringing. the reality was like if you weren't good, and I definitely wasn't as a child. I took a lot of things to heart that I definitely do not anymore. But if you didn't have that quick comeback in your head, ready to go, ready to snap back at someone at any given moment, you kind of just got ran over. So
Yeah.
you had to be able to joke about pretty much everything, and you had to be very quick with whatever the comeback was going to be.
Yeah, and that I think comes through on your script. Now, I do have to ask because I'm curious. You mentioned your background. You come from an all boys school and that. For the part of Jessica, when you wrote Jessica's part, the dialogue and such, did you run it past some friends, female friends, or get a female perspective to make sure, hey, am I writing this correctly? Because a lot of times when you're watching a film and you see the script, you're like, okay, a guy wrote that lady's part, that female part. Did you get input from folks?
Yeah, the process of development, you end up sending it to, I mean, dozens of people, quite
Sure.
frankly. So yes, certainly I have, but to that point, I mean, my mother's very close to me in my
Right.
life, and I have a girlfriend of 5 years, and so I've always been around women. That's not really the problem. I went to school with men academically, but outside
Sure.
of
Right.
that, was always present. But yeah, I think as a male director, writing female parts is difficult. But quite frankly, I have to write characters all the time that I don't
Right.
really assimilate to.
Mhm.
And one thing that I was taught pretty early on by one of my mentors is that you take a 2 pages of paper and you just write down like everything to that character, things that have no business being in the film or whatever, but you just get into that headspace. And the second thing too is then when you're reading it and you're writing and you're going back to do edits, you try to speak as though you're in their voice, in kind of their speech pattern, in how they would deliver the line, because you find out really quickly if it's clunky or if it actually works.
Mhm.
So I always approach it kind of the same way, no matter what background it may be, male, female, or someone's really poor, really rich. Like it doesn't really matter as long as I make sure that's consistent and in my head. And again, if it's bad, people read it and they shoot me back notes and
Sure.
quite frankly, they tell me it's crap. You got to get real comfortable with that when you're a writer. So people rarely hold back their opinions to me. Yes.
Well, but you don't necessarily want to. I mean, you do
True.
videos out of YouTube. The internet is a vicious, vicious place. I
Yes.
know I've been on there for many years, but you also, uh, I've had filmmakers say thank you for being honest because you're not going to learn if someone goes, "Oh no, this is just fine." You're like, "No, I don't want fine." Tell me, is this what this character would say, or is this what the dialogue, does this seem natural? You want that honest feedback because otherwise how do you learn and get to be a better filmmaker? So that's great that you have those resources because I think some indie filmmakers out there, especially those who are out of school and that or have just come from film school or whatnot, don't think they need that, at some
Yeah.
point. And it's like everybody needs feedback when you're doing creative things like this. And especially when you have time and budget limitations, right?
Yep.
Now, for your cast, did you have a lot of time to do like run throughs with them? Did they have a lot of time to kind of meet together and run through things? Because Jessica and Thomas, they feel very natural together. Teresa and Halston really feel natural together. Did they have some time to kind of prep, or was it a tight schedule and just they met the first time in their first scene?
No, they met previously just online, not in
Right.
person. One thing that we did that a little bit unique, but definitely not the first to do it, is we housed the main talent together.
Oh,
So specifically, Del Allen Murphy, Holston, and Therese, they all were housed in the same house, and so every night they essentially would just go up and read through
sure.
lines and come up with things, which ended up being great. Not only because obviously the rapport was great, it felt very natural, it felt very real, but also, they would come to me in the morning and say, "Hey, we had this idea about this." And most of the time, I would say, "I don't want to even hear it. Let's just go shoot it. Let's see what it
Right.
looks like. If it's bad, we'll fix it." So I'm not one of these writers to, say, "Oh, it's how I wrote it. That's what we're gonna do." I like to have it
Sure.
be exploratory as much as possible. I like to film everything. So if
Mhm.
we're going through rehearsal, And even if they have the sheet in hand, we'll just shoot close-ups. We'll just get
Sure.
B-roll of them because the thing is, you don't have that time to really play that much. I don't get to do 20 takes. I wouldn't do 20 takes anyway, but whatever, you don't really have the time for it. So I really like to let them experiment as much as possible, pretty much right off the bat. And even if it's clunky and they don't get through it, now I have all of these tapes of, okay, like she was looking over here, I can use that, and whatever. There's always like little spots that we can kind of play with.
Can never have enough coverage, right? If nothing else.
Yes. And I actually don't shoot for coverage,
Sure.
which is even better. I do, which is a kind of a big no-no, and drives my cinematographer insane as well. But no, I storyboard the whole thing. I
Hmm.
shot list the whole thing. And then I memorize it. And so when I
Yeah,
come to set, I don't even have it. I have it on me, but I don't really look at it.
sure.
And then it's just all memorized. And so I'm ready to go with, hey, here are the 3 shots we need. And then it's always, hey, why didn't we, what if we got this? What if we got this? I'm like, dude, we have 13 days. We got to go. Like there is no
Right.
waiting around. It's so funny when you're a filmmaker, you're always thinking about how do I develop my skill because I need to be able to shoot things to develop my voice and my skill and how I get there. But the assumption is in the film industry is that that part's already kind of figured out. Like
Hmm.
you're not getting paid to go out there and figure your voice out. The assumption is your voice is figured out, and that the
Right.
thing that you do have to figure out is the film, that it's going to look
Mhm.
right, and it's going to come out to be this, this masterpiece that's going to make money. So you really need to do all of that stuff. It's not ideal, but you got to kind of do that stuff in your head, kind of have it played out to a point where, okay, I can see it. And the nice thing is that I edit them as well. And so
Mhm.
for me, I know, no, we don't need that shot because what I'm going to do is bounce from the wide up to the extreme close up, out to medium, and then that's it. Like I know what the cuts are
Sure.
in advance, and I don't have to necessarily worry about having that kind of B-roll mentality. Now it's nice to have, but it is what it is.
Well, when you're working on a limited budget and time, for sure. Now, for your film, you mentioned you had 13 days to film this, or was it?
Yeah, 13 days, which was tough. It was quick, but we actually kind of ended early every single day and really made our days. We were ahead after like 4 days.
Mhm.
And we held that ahead status the entire time, adding a little bit from the next day in to the current day pretty much every day so that we always knew, okay, like one of these days we'll have a problem and we have plenty of time. So I think that last day was really just a half day. We kind of sat around
Mhm.
waiting, and it was a night shot because what happened was it rained the day of the fire
Oh,
pit scene. And that was supposed to be at the end of the second week going into the weekend. So it was like night, they go into the weekend, we start late on Monday. But whatever. So it got pushed to the very last day. And so everyone ended up, coming in very late at like 4 or 5 p.m., shot a little bit, like one scene, and then we just waited for darkness and then we shot. So yeah, it was honestly quick, but very, very accomplishable. Really no struggle there.
did you get complaints from the neighbors for that scene with the fire pit with the yelling?
No, no complaints. We did go house to house in
Mhm.
advance and kind of warn people, which was
Sure.
good. I think that was a good decision, especially with that the howls.
Yeah.
Definitely, got up there in noise, but we shot in a pretty residential area, so
Hmm.
not horribly close to any other homes or anything like that.
Right.
But yeah, totally could have.
I just.
You run into these things all the time, though. You run into like someone's doing construction on their house, or someone
Sure.
has a lawnmower, or I never realized it, but where we're shooting, you realize very quickly, as is apparently a air traffic, heavily air
Sure.
traffic space. So you find out real quickly that there's going to be problems, and it is what it is.
Yeah, that audio, you don't realize it till, you're trying to film. Like I was script supervisor in a film, and it was one of those to where you had the sound guy, and he was like, all right, hold, as we'd wait for a car to pass because the house is supposed to be in a remote area with no traffic, and you had cars going past. So it's like, okay, let's go.
Yep. And sending your producer to go pay the lawn mowing people $20 to leave for 3 hours. Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. In the world of indie, you really can't control much. And
Sure,
I learned really quickly that if you're inside, great. And if you're outside, you are going to have to add in a good amount of time because you're going to have a real tough go. The outside exterior shots, there's just always something, a
sure.
car or a truck or construct, like there's just something that has to happen. So not ideal. Yeah, but it is what it is. You work with what you have. And again, I think in the grand scheme of things, people hear 13 days and they think, wow, that was really quickly. But it's enough time. I think
Hmm.
if you are on a 10-day schedule or less,
Yeah.
I've heard it before. I wouldn't do it. You can do it though. I think a really comfortable place for indie is probably 16,
Hmm.
maybe 17 is really comfortable. That's like you're gonna be just fine doing that.
Well, and for your piece, it's a character-driven piece. You don't have a whole lot of special effects or such going on that you don't necessarily need quite as much setup as, say, something that's going to be a horror film that requires a lot of makeup effects and such. I mean, you do have some in here, but just not nearly as much as some others. So that gives you a little extra time too. How did you finance? Did you do a crowdsourcing for this? Was this, did you were able to find private investors, if you don't mind me asking? I was wondering because, no offense, but you're a guy, a younger guy, just not quite starting out, but you've only got a few years. So I was wondering how you were able to get together the financing for it.
Yeah, no, great question. And I am essentially just starting out. I've been
Sure.
doing this for 2 years, like 2.5 years now.
Hmm.
So I very early in the career, and I already have a second film too, which is coming out later this year. So
Oh,
things have
nice.
been going well. But yeah, so the budget was $80,000.
Mhm.
That's what we ended up raising. And by we, I mean I graduated college technically early, a couple months.
Mm.
And so I was still enrolled and I still had to kind of do some stuff for school, but I had that time where I knew, okay, I could travel
Sure.
if I needed to. I could kind of do what I needed. And I knew I wanted to come out and just make a film right away. So 2 days after graduating, that's when production started. We just
Oh,
hopped on set and shot right away. In that time, I sent 500 emails to investors, really heavily researching, different
mhm.
movies and who financed them and finding stuff about those people, finding their email, emailing them, calling, whatever it was. And able to set up a couple meetings in New York and LA, took a flight out to LA, met with them and got checks in hand essentially. And which was great. And I'm not sure it's repeatable, but we did it
Sure.
and went to shoot. And yeah, so and luckily one of those people who ended up investing in the first one was a VC who does low budget movies, and
Sure.
so they were clearly happy enough with the outcome that they financed a second film for a bit more money. So got pretty lucky with that as well. But the funny thing is, like, once you do one film and it's out, and then you kind of get a
Hmm.
second, and now you kind of get the ball rolling, more people are willing to answer your call, and you're able to kind of get a little bit more from people
Sure.
who otherwise, out of 500 emails, I probably only heard from 40, 50, and then I probably got meetings with maybe 6 or 7, and then I, got a yes from 4. So
Sure.
it's yeah, it's a fight. It's a struggle. Yeah.
That's always the biggest struggle with indie films is getting the financing because I think people don't realize just how tough that is to, well, like you said, you sent out 500 and you got four, four
Yeah.
people or five people that you can meet. So, I mean, that's always the biggest challenge I find for, because you could always use a larger budget to do what you need to do. But you take with what you can get, you work with what you get. And I think you made the best of, what you got here, with your film here, five easy, 5 steps to, for a cult.
Yeah, I
So,
think the question too is, when you're starting out in your career, there's kind of two paths you can take.
mhm,
There's probably more, but there's really two that I see patterns with. There's the one where you come out and you make something pretty low budget and you make it as good as it can possibly be,
sure.
and hopefully it gains enough recognition that you kind of it goes well and you get more projects. That is the fastest, but it's also the most risky because in that, if you only raise $5,000 and you can make a movie for
Yeah.
$5,000, if it comes out and it's really bad, you can't. Not only can you not even use it to as a calling card, you really it's probably a huge detriment too. So
Mhm.
it's a bit of a risk of, okay, yes, you can make it for less money, but if it comes out really bad, it's gonna just be a hindrance for you, and you essentially have to bury it. That's
Mhm.
really what you're gonna end up having to do. The alternative is you're a creative assistant to someone. I was a creative assistant to a director, a big name director for a year. Like you work at a management company or whatever, right? You work your way up. You go on set as a PA, stuff like that. And I've done variances of all those things. I've been a PA on set, creative assistant. I've worked at Brookside Artist Management. Like I've done a bunch of things, but I did it all while I was in college, and I realized really quickly, like it's a path, it's a way to do it. You become a PA, you go to AD, you go to first AD, you go to a director's assistant, maybe you get a second unit director, and then now you're there. But that ends up being 15, 20 years. And, I don't know, like a lot of things can happen in that time. You might drop out, you might get tired of it. It's really hard work, not a lot of pay. So at least for me, it was always let's do it as quick as possible, break things, don't care about it, and if it doesn't work, let's go do something else. Quite frankly,
Sure.
but if it does work, great, we did it quickly, and now we're into it. So yeah, I think there's always a risk though. Like if you don't raise enough money, because it is a money thing. Like my film, the original script had a lot more things in it. It had
Sure.
a much bigger finale with a lot more things going on, with a lot more death and destruction. We had someone falling down a flight of stairs and breaking their leg in the script.
Sure.
Like there were all kinds of things that I wanted, backstabs and drama and whatever. And the script was always wordy. It's a dark comedy, so you have that kind of, quick, clever
Mhm.
comebacks, but it was a lot less wordy because if we raised $1 million, okay, well, we have a completely different script now. And so there was a realization of, okay, what do I realistically need to make this very solid, but
Mhm.
not rich? And so that was where we landed. And actually, I landed at like 60,000 was kind of like the breaking things not worth doing.
Sure.
And so we got 80, and it was like, okay, we're comfortable, we can do this. But yeah, it's a risk, it's a gamble, and filmmakers, every time you start your career, that kind of you face that option.
Mhm.
And I get a lot of DMs now that it's out, and now that I have the YouTube channel of people who are even younger than me, or some of whom are older than me, reaching out and being like, "Oh, what would you recommend? How did you do it? Whatever." And I give them essentially the same two options, and they're not great options really either direction to go, but
Sure.
you got to pick it, right? You got to
Right.
pick it and stick with it and try your best. That's the end of the story. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, I mean, and nowadays, so you've mentioned the YouTube channel where I checked it out. You've got a web series on there with some work you did with AI, which I have a little few questions on for you on that. But you've got yourself out there now, and you do have that venue that, say, 20 years ago, weren't exactly there for indie films. So you can put out smaller projects, right? You can show a little bit more of what you can do. It doesn't necessarily have to be in one necessarily huge chunk if you can't get the money for it. You can also do it in small batches, right?
You certainly can. I think the future of filmmaking ultimately is going to be much smaller cohorts of creatives making
Hmm.
things together. You see this with Creator Camp and some other groups as well, who they just band together, they make their stuff as a group. I'm really curious to see if something like that holds up or not. I don't know. But the reality is that the tools are getting much cheaper. And
Right.
so it's a lot more of what can we pull off given the resources we have, how quickly can we do it, how many can we do? And quite frankly, if you look at YouTubers, if you're a YouTuber who is a filmmaker, it's very different than being a filmmaker who does YouTube. For me,
Sure.
everything I do on YouTube is to drive traffic to my projects
Hmm.
because I have not just one movie but two, and two will go to three, right? And so trying to collectively gather a community who likes my work
Right.
versus me putting out content about camera lenses and this is what Christopher Nolan did in his work, and like I'm not talking about other people. And so it's a much different thing, but like at the end of the day, they're still creative, they're still creators. It's not a knock on them. They're just after something completely different. And I think the size and the budget and the actual profitability is a very different conversation. The whole business model, quite frankly, is like horribly different. But it's going to be a viable method of doing it. I mean, even me for my team, like I don't hire anyone who I don't need to hire. Like
Sure.
if I got $1 million today, I'm not hiring an editor. I'm going to edit. Like there's no reason to have one. I want that control. Yes, we're going to hire, a wardrobe person for the first time. That would be great. But we're not going to go excessive where we have 10 wardrobe people. Like you don't need that anymore now that you have certain tools at our disposal or whatever it may be. So I don't know. I see it going down this rabbit hole of smaller teams making smaller projects, but just being able to use what they have to such an advantage that it's interesting and it's quick. Um, I don't know. The other thing that comes to mind too is like you see these stories of people who got to 200,000 followers on Instagram, and then they get hired to go make a movie. And
Right.
some of it works out. There's a couple people that come to mind who have been able to do that. But I think when you're starting out in your career, okay, if you're graduating college, having the mentality be, okay, I'm gonna get the followers online and then, someone will come pick me up. Like, no, it's not gonna
Mhm.
happen. You might be able to get a bunch of followers online, maybe. And quite frankly, a lot of those people are really actors. They're not really filmmakers. A lot of them are just like they're skit people and they're very talented. Like these people are extremely talented, but they're not really filmmakers. And so the idea of like, oh, I'm going to go viral and from that virality, someone's going to come give me money, I think is just as silly as I'm going to write a script that's like Star Wars and someone's going to give me $100 million to go film it. Like it's not going to happen. So the plan should be, and what I've really stuck with in my career is what is something I can do in the next 12 months that will get me further ahead than I am today? How do I market that? How do I market myself with it? And how do we just go from one stepping stone to the next, to the next, to the next? And I think having it be that a bit of a grind, but it's clearly what you want to do in a development from one to the next is arguably the better strategy. But yeah, virality and I don't, I never like it. I think it's a tough thing.
It,
You can't bank
it
on it.
it's a tough thing, but I think what doesn't help is like the larger studios or the industry. You hear stories of, oh, they hired this person because, they have 200,000 or 1 million followers or, hundreds of thousands of followers. You've heard stories of someone got cast and casting directors are saying, well, we'd like to hire you, but you don't have enough followers. So I think the industry has kind of fed that as well, though, that need for some people feeling the need they need that following before they can get their part versus getting the part and then developing the people.
It's certainly true. I mean, I'm actually involved in projects that view it that way, right? Where
Mhm.
we're going after financing, and as we do that, we're assigning and reaching out to talent that has, 100,000
Right,
followers. But at the end of the day, it's just an economic plan, right? If you have that, particularly in an indie space, once you get to studio, they don't care. The reason they're
right,
making their money, especially these days, quite frankly, is not the star talent. The reason they're making their money is because A24 prints their name on the front, and people
yeah,
know that it's going to be to a certain quality.
right,
And I think that's great. And I think on a micro level for indie people, not that I want to be, I don't really want to be an indie director my whole life. I'm
sure, well, yeah,
24, right? It's just starting out. But I think as an indie filmmaker, it's you need to kind of do the same thing in like a micro sense where it's every time you put out a project, every time I put out a project, it's one of my films,
right,
right? Like I'm the person that they follow instead of it being here's movie A, here's movie B, no one associates the two together because it's very hard to bring that community with you. And that's
right,
what social media is. It's just your ability to grow a community, right? So my
right,
YouTube has like 6.5 thousand subs or whatever it is, right? Okay, if I get that to 20,000, it's like not all of them are going to watch my next movie, but
right.
whatever, 25% of them will. And that's a big bump that you just get immediately. And maybe they tell their friends and whatever, right? So that kind of stuff, it can be, I mean, literally makes or breaks your entire career. which whether you like it or not, it's here to be. It's like the AI that I know you want to get into. It is here
It,
to stay. There's no way around it.
well, and that's what I was going to ask because I talked to another filmmaker who made a completely short film from AI, and actually he teaches a class on it. Chris Vallone, he teaches a class on it, and we had an interesting discussion. And I've always been kind of on the fence about it. So it's great that I saw on your YouTube channel you did a web series involving AI and animation, which I enjoyed the story. I thought it was a bit adorable, and your characters and everything and what you were doing. And you even acknowledge it that you can tell it's AI. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it is it one of those things where AI is a good tool, but it shouldn't be considered a replacement for things? Because I think some people are seeing it as a replacement for things, and even the bigger studios not understanding it. And that's where the fear comes in, is that, oh, this is going to replace this. What's your stance on it? Is it to replace things, or is it a tool to help enhance things?
Also, great question. I It's going to be a bit of both at the end of the
Hmm.
day. It's a tool, okay? So there's no way around that. And quite frankly, movies have been using AI for the
Right.
last 10,
Hmm.
20 years now. Anytime that you're reading subtitles on Netflix, I don't know how you think those are getting made, but they're definitely getting made
Yeah.
with AI. The same if it's changing languages. That's
Hmm.
all done with AI these days. There's a bunch of production that's happening with AI these days. I think pretty much every screenwriter I know is using it as essentially an assistant
Hmm.
who, reads your work and judges it and gives you feedback on it. So every project at this point is definitely having a hand in it. I could be wrong about this next bit, and quite frankly, in the next 5 years, we'll probably find out.
Yeah.
I have a real hard time imagining, for many reasons, that movies at a high level are going to get replaced by AI.
Right.
I do think as a filmmaker, you need to be aware of the tools, which was the entire point of my YouTube channel, was just to that particular series in it was to be able to just learn the tools, play with it, see what's on the market. And quite frankly, the stuff I was doing then is wildly out of date today. And I've played around with some of that stuff. It's kind of wild how out of date it is in just about a year, not even like 9 months, 6 months.
Yeah.
But anything from IP infringement is a huge problem. The idea of having star talent, you're going to have Scarlett Johansson give up her likeness to some AI studio because at the end of the
Right.
day, there are a lot of great indie movies out there. My movie is a great indie movie, but no one cares about it because I'm not famous and my talent's not famous, and so it essentially never happened.
Right.
So you're gonna need, Dwayne the Rock Johnson to be able to play that superhero, and he's not going to be giving up his rights to that because and put it this way, if he does, that it's $20 million a movie because that's what he's getting from the other movies, and he's not about
Right.
to give up his salary for the kindness of AI. So
Sure.
I don't see a world where it takes over everything. I absolutely see a world where it is replacement for certain jobs, right?
Mhm.
VFX. You're not going to have 100 VFX people. You might have 10, and they're going to have, whatever framework that's helping them do it.
Sure.
But especially as an indie filmmaker at this level, what that does is allows you to open up to a lot more complex storytelling. I would probably, right now, if I made How to Start a Cult in 5 Steps now, and it's hilarious because that was 2 years ago. If I made that film now, I could probably do the scene where someone falls down a flight of stairs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and it would have cost me $100,
Right.
right? It would have been the cheapest shot we ever did.
Hmm.
So, unfortunately, but fortunately, depending on who you are, it is actually a really great tool. I just don't see the entire industry getting taken over. I just don't think so. And, even taking it a step further, if it does take over the entire industry, that would mean that it's essentially taking over all jobs, which means people are just not going to have jobs, which means
Right.
people are then just going to be like at home. And what do people do when they're bored? They go to like their hobbies. And for a lot of people, filmmaking's a hobby. So then it's going to just go
Yep.
right back to people making films and trying to sell it to their friends.
Sure.
Like that. So it's just, this is a hobby industry. Like it's entertainment. It's fun. No one ever asked for any movie ever. No one ever wanted I'm in the startup world as well. Okay. So I have a cybersecurity company for senior citizens. Okay. We're like
Okay,
the
sure.
only one that does it. We have AI powering it,
Yeah,
whatever. It's a great tool, great resource. Golden Shield, go check it out. But like that's a tangible problem. Like people do ask
right.
for tools to solve that.
Mhm.
No one has ever asked for a cult movie and how to start one. My second movie is about a psychic. No one's ever been like, "Oh, I'm killing for a psychic movie. I need a movie about a psychic." No one. So you're selling something that no one ever wanted, and you're having to get them to say, "Yeah, I'll give up an hour and a half, 2 hours of my life to watch it,
You're right.
and $4 or $5." Like it's a real uphill battle.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I just think the AI is not got to take it over. It's crazy that we care that much about film in the first place. I'm glad we do. I love film. I mean, I
Right.
adore film. It's my entire life. But like, I'm shocked that that's a industry. Like, I think it's shocking every day. Anytime someone hands me a check to go make a film, I'm utterly shocked, but happy, thrilled.
But
Give me
happy.
more. Yeah, very happy about it.
Absolutely. And who would you say, or what would you say is your biggest influence then, since you are heavy into movies? I mean, you're going into it as a career. You're got your first feature already under your belt, which is amazing. You know, who or what would you say is one of your biggest inspirations?
It's a great question. I'm not even sure I've ever been asked that. Uh, Not specific to this movie.
Yeah, not specific, just in
Yeah,
general. What, you know,
just
what
in
was
general.
it? Did you watch something as a kid and go, man, I want to make a movie? You know, was there someone or something that triggered that was you would say you draw from your inspiration for wanting to make film?
Yeah, so as a kid, I always loved movies. I would always come home and do my homework in front of the TV when I was like in sixth grade or
Sure.
whatever. And that just kept going on. Like
Mhm.
I today I watched like three movies. Like that is just what I do. And I don't know. Once I got my car, I would drive to the movie theater pretty much every other night.
Mhm.
I have one of those like Regal Fast Pass things, and I could just go see as many movies as I wanted. I was gonna go become like a lawyer or a banker, something like that.
Sure.
I come from a professional household. Everyone
Mhm.
does something that requires a suit of some kind.
Right.
But my dad and I would always go to lunch on Saturdays when I was in high school. And he asked me one day, really seriously, what do you want to do with your life? I said a lawyer. He was a lawyer. He hated his life. He hated being a lawyer.
Sure.
And he was like, "You absolutely will not be a lawyer. Like absolutely not. Do not
Sure.
do it. Please do not do it."
Yeah.
And then he said, "All right, like, but seriously, like, what do you want to do? Not me. Like, what do you want to do?" And I quite frankly didn't know. So I took a week. I thought really hard about it. I came back and I said, all right, if there's one thing that I love that I just consume like nobody else is movies. It's all I really care about. And luckily he said, then, that's what you do. Go do it. Don't do anything else. He always had this mentality that whatever you were doing, if you just put your full effort to it and
Sure.
you just didn't quit, essentially,
Mhm.
you would get there. And quite frankly, I think that's right. Is like the person who just never stops, going is almost always the person who wins.
Mhm.
People are going to get lucky around you too, and that kind of sucks. Watching people who, maybe you wouldn't expect to get that opportunity. Maybe they didn't care as much, they didn't work as hard, they took days off, you didn't. But you need to look at that and say, good for them. You keep going. So
Right.
yeah, I don't know. It was a mixture of just having the right adults around me when I was younger saying, go do it, do the thing, and also just having a passion myself for filmmaking. Yeah.
And do you have a favorite filmmaker?
These days, yeah, I would say like of all time, I'm gonna go Tarantino.
Sure.
I
Hmm.
really, really love Tarantino. I
Hmm.
really love his story, his level of passion, like is just so unmatched, I think. The way he talks about film is just so different than
Hmm.
anyone else. And I think his view on film is unique. Like he's not willing to just subside to the groupthink and say
Sure.
what everyone else wants. And I love that. I love the individuality and him kind of standing out, even if it gets him in trouble. Like he's just like, I'm gonna do me, and then that's kind of
Sure.
it. So I would definitely say Tarantino, yeah, of all time.
That's
The
not that.
Safdie brothers are up there now, though.
Yeah.
Current, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that too. But yeah, I can Tarantino's not a bad pick at all. I always like Tarantino's scripts his dialogue.
Oh yeah.
I think there's very few people, and I consume a lot of film. I think there's very few scripts out there that have quite the same dialogue beat. They're beats. It's actually got a cadence to it, the back and forth, and the conversations between people seems natural, but also just a little bit different. If you watch a film and you watch two people talking, you're like, that's a Tarantino film right there.
Yep.
And
Yeah, the thing for me too is that everything is linked to everything else.
mhm,
And so it's so character driven, but at the same time, there are plot points that he can easily reach
mhm,
because he set so many things in motion all at one
sure.
time. So he'll use most screenwriters when they write, particularly ones who are young like me, a lot of them will write things where the point of this scene is blank, and that's it. Whereas, his scenes are, hey, we just got these five things from this scene. We saw that there was a gun in that room. We know that she has a cousin. We didn't think that's important. That's going to be important. We know, this person's
Yeah,
going there at that point, and they talked about this personal dramatic issue. And so you get so much out of everything, and the scenes don't linger. They just go and they
right.
go and they go. And then on top of it, just the level of humor. Like even in moments where you just wouldn't suspect humor, it's there, it's present, and it doesn't feel like it was supposed to be funny, but you find yourself chuckling at it. And again, for me, like I want to be known for the dark comedy. That's what I love. That's the genre I like to play in. And like pushing those boundaries, like in Pulp Fiction, where you have like kind of like a sex dungeon, whatever thing, and then he gets hit by a car 2 seconds later. Like just having all these like crazy things
Sure.
happen. Like, of course they happen that way. Like, of course they would. What else would happen? Like you
Right.
start thinking, well, yeah, duh, but no, not duh. That's not duh to anyone. And it's just so natural. It just happens. And yeah, I loved it. And that's why the softie, but like, I just watched Marty Supreme. Like
Oh, sure.
he goes to take the bath, and that spoiler, he goes to take the bath, and then the thing just goes, "Okudong," and then he breaks the guy's arm, and then, he sees the cash, he takes the dog, like, of course, he gets warned not to take the shower. So of course that happens. And you saw the guy downstairs. He has to come back, and everything just unfolds in such a natural way that would
Mhm.
seem totally impossible any other way. And I don't know. I just love it, and you get such a passion watching their films. You really do. You leave those theaters being like, I want to go make a film. That is what I want to do.
And you have done that now with your film, which is that hitting streaming yet? Well, it's out for your site because you learned very quickly the challenges of getting your film to distribution and what happens with distribution. I watched your video, by the way, and I think that's actually a really that what you uh, talk about in your video about distribution is something that I think people don't realize is happening out there. And I've talked to a number of indie filmmakers who had the exact same thing happen to you, who have gone and done self distribution for their film because what the distributors wanted, it was like, why, this isn't even mine then. It's
Yep.
it's the distributors, and they don't want that because you put so much blood, sweat, and tears into a project like this. So yeah, that's great. You got that kind of lesson early.
Yeah, so the film came out. It was really great. We went to festivals. We got a semi-finalist at Seattle Film Festival. That was really great. We signed with a sales agent almost immediately. They were pretty interested. We had two or three people reach out. We went with the one that we thought would be the best, a smaller one. We actually had a larger sales agent come, but we felt like we would be one of, however
Sure.
many
Yeah.
they had that week. And we got distribution offers from pretty good people, and I don't list them because, quite
No.
frankly,
Yeah.
they probably don't know that they offered me because some random guy on their team did, and I don't want them to know that I said no to them. And I might want to do business with them one day, but
Sure.
they end up wanting to take by the end of it, 50% ownership for essentially nothing. And it used to be that the goal was essentially to sell for an MG.
Right.
Nowadays, and it's not, I know how this sounds because it's how it sounds to me, okay? But I know it's not true, and I tell myself it's not true. But maybe it is. But it's not that my film was like uniquely bad and like people wouldn't offer. It's like no, these companies are legit companies. If they didn't think it
Right.
was good, wouldn't have offered.
Hmm.
And quite frankly, I know someone who had the like number one indie movie of 2022, like literally like awarded that from several different groups. And he got essentially the exact same offers I got from
Yeah.
actually worse companies. And so, when you can no longer sell for a price tag, an MG, and then, say, well, we made our money back, great, we're done. And now it's, hey, 0% and 50% taken, no money up front, and we're going to have ownership for the next 10 years, and the first $20,000 go to us. And, there's no actual
Yeah.
auditing process, so you never really know. It's just numbers on a screen. I don't know as a filmmaker how you do sign that contract. And I think it's a extremely risky game to be doing that. Versus as a filmmaker, 90% of indie films fail. They don't make their money back. They don't even
Right.
break even. Well, if you actually go into the data, for the most part, the 10% that succeed are just the 10% where the director or the star talent became someone relatively famous. Like
Right.
they just ended up becoming someone of notoriety. And so for me, it's like, okay, well, if in 5 years I go off and I make a movie for Netflix and people suddenly really care about me, or my YouTube channel goes to 100,000 people and people suddenly care about the thing I make, well, if the production company, if the distribution company has ownership of that film, all of those proceeds go to them, and
Right.
and we'll have no ability to actually make any accounting to
Hmm.
whether they're right or not. Versus if we have ownership, yeah, okay, year one might be slow, year two might be slow. By the way, if you make $1, you made more than you're probably ever going to see from that distributor. But
Sure.
regardless, and we made a lot more than $1. But if in 5 years I go off and I make something, and now we have 20,000 people wanting to go watch, well, now it's a success story. Like now
Right.
we just made something that's worth something. So I don't know. You have to make a bet on yourself. You have to be entrepreneurial, and it opens yourself up to doing a lot of other things. You can do DVDs, you could do merch, you can have sponsors, you can have ads on your website, you can do all kinds of things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do.
Hmm.
And at any given moment, I can sell that script, that film to one of
Right.
these distributors because they don't care that it's been out. They do not care about that. They just need
Right.
content. Tubi needs
Mhm.
1,000 new shows every 3 months. And so at any given time, if I want to take the easy way out, I can do it. I just
Sure.
I don't think it's a good decision. I don't know why anyone makes that deal.
Well, and nowadays too, you have the tools at hand where you can self-distribute, and there's a lot of venues you can go now to where if you want to put in a little of the extra work, you can do that. As you
Yep.
mentioned, you set up a website, you set up streaming service, you get that set up, and then you're controlling that, and you maintain the ownership, which is usually the biggest thing, as you said, with your product. And when you put that much work into it, you kind of want to keep ownership, at least for a while, of what you've made. So, yeah, you've got a great movie here on how to start a cult in 5 easy steps. It's a lot of fun, folks. I'll have links and stuff for it to check it out. And yeah, where can they follow you at? Where can they keep up with your projects? You mentioned you got another movie. Yeah, shill away. What else you got coming up?
Yeah, so I filmed a movie back in May called The Psychic Files. So that's a suspense movie, a found footage suspense movie. And that'll come out. It's with sales agents now, so
Sure.
whatever. It'll come out maybe in August, September, hopefully October, November, something like that. I'm working on some other, pretty exciting things, honestly, at the moment. I have a TV series that we're going to be doing. It's a new business model,
Mm.
and so it's more creator, like online personality
Sure.
driven. That's called The Best Podcasts Never. So working on that now, developing, signing some people to it. I have a game show that we're doing, which is super exciting. We're in talks for financing for that right now. So that's pretty cool. I love the game show network. That's like, I absolutely love it. All this stuff though, and following my career is all YouTube or Instagram. I get a lot of DMs on Instagram. Feel free to ask me anything if you're out there listening to this. I get like 4 or 5 a day, quite frankly, like whatever. It's like I'm just constantly texting with people. But yeah, YouTube, honestly, YouTube is kind of my main source of communication because I talk about all my projects, what's going on, updates, BTS as well, which is pretty cool. So, especially for the game show, that's going to be on YouTube. So, you can check it out there. We got some sponsors and stuff. It's going to be fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah, game shows are always fun and interesting what you come up with. So we look forward to all of your projects, Wes. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us on our channel here. And yes, folks, check it out. I'll put all the links and information down below on the description of this video. And thanks. And yeah, I'll love to have you back sometime when you have a few more projects going and completed. Love to talk to you again.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for having me. Would love to come back.
Awesome.
Anytime I get to chat about my work is a good day. So
It is
thanks for having
indeed.
me.